What if the most powerful man alive is also the most psychologically broken person in every room he walks into? And what if the thing that made him dangerous, the thing that makes him unstoppable, is the exact same thing that guarantees his destruction? If that sounds impossible, stay close. Because Machiavelli saw this coming 500 years ago. Most people watch Homelander and see a monster, a villain, someone born wrong. But here's the thing, Machiavelli would have watched The Boys and seen something completely different. He wouldn't have seen a supervillain origin story. He would have seen the most precise psychological portrait of unchecked power ever put on screen. And he would have seen a warning. Not about superheroes. About the people you already know. The boss who needs everyone's approval, but punishes anyone who questions him. The partner whose love disappears the moment you stop performing devotion. The leader who manufactures enemies to keep the crowd afraid and unified. Homelander isn't fiction. He's a psychology textbook wearing a cape. And here's the piece of forbidden knowledge. Nobody in this niche will tell you Vought didn't just create a weapon. They used the most ruthless Machiavellian strategy ever applied to a human being. They engineered a specific psychological condition inside a child. A condition designed to make the most powerful being on earth completely controllable. And what they used to do it? The Catholic Church banned it for 400 years. Forbidden for Catholics to even read. Because the truth about how power and human nature actually worked, the truth Machiavelli documented, was considered too dangerous to be in circulation. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how Vought did it. You're going to see the 3 psychological principles Machiavelli identified that explain every single thing Homelander does. And most importantly, you're going to recognize this psychology in people you've already met. Stay close, because what I'm about to show you cannot be unseen. Here's what most people completely miss about Homelander. And it's the thing that makes the dark psychology of The Boys so much more disturbing than it looks on the surface. He's not violent because he's evil. He's violent because he's desperate. And that distinction, that gap between evil and desperate, is everything. Because evil you can identify and avoid. Desperate you can miss entirely until it's too late. Think about every act of destruction Homelander commits across 5 seasons of The Boys. The passengers on Flight 37. The mayor of Baltimore, Mayor Steve, shot down in a private jet with his own son on board, simply because he threatened to expose Compound V. The stagehand killed for a social media post. The crowd. Every single one traces back to the same source. Not cruelty, not sadism, something far more human and far more dangerous. The threat of losing approval. That's it. That's the whole engine. Every body, every laser, every act of terror. They're all the decisions of a man whose internal stability is entirely outsourced to what other people think of him. Remove the crowd's applause, and he dissolves. Not because he's weak, because he was built that way. And this is where the dark psychology of Homelander gets cold. Because Machiavelli documented this exact architecture of control over 5 centuries ago. He understood something that Vought, whether they knew it or not, applied with terrifying precision. Find a man's deepest need, and you hold his leash forever, regardless of how much power he accumulates. Later in this video, I'm going to show you the exact moment Homelander's psychology was permanently locked in place. The specific decision Vought made that made him both invincible and completely manageable. It's not what you think. Keep watching. Drop dangerous in the comments right now if you already feel where this is going. Before we go deeper, you need to understand who Machiavelli actually was, because he's not just a name people drop for credibility. He's the most ruthlessly accurate observer of human power who ever lived. He served the Florentine Republic for 14 years. And he didn't study power from books, he watched it operate in real time. He watched princes lose kingdoms. He watched ambitious men destroy themselves. Not because their enemies were stronger, because their own psychology was their greatest vulnerability. When the Medici came back to power, they arrested him, had him tortured. He didn't break. They sent him into exile, stripped of everything: his title, his income, his reputation. He retreated to a small farmhouse outside Florence with nothing left to perform for. No audience, no position, nothing to protect. And in that silence, with nothing left to pretend about, he wrote The Prince. Not a nice guide for decent men. A cold, ruthless breakdown of how power actually moves when nobody's watching. This is Machiavellian dark psychology, explained at its biographical root: a man with nothing left to lose, writing the most honest document about human nature ever committed to paper. Not what people say they want, what they actually respond to. And his central finding, the one running through every chapter, every warning, every observation: the man who needs nothing from the room controls the room. And the man who needs everything from the room will always, eventually, be controlled by whoever can provide or withdraw what he needs. He wasn't writing philosophy. He was writing mechanics. And everything he documented applies to Homelander with a precision that should genuinely disturb you. So here's the first thing Machiavelli would identify. And it's the foundation that everything else is built on. Homelander cannot derive power from within, not even slightly. Every single thing he does, every act of violence, every public performance, every relationship he burns, traces back to one question running underneath it all: do they still love me? Think about that for a second. The most physically powerful being on the planet. Laser eyes, flight, invulnerability, can't be hurt by any weapon ever made. And his entire psychological architecture is built on a foundation that any random person in a crowd can destroy by simply looking away. Machiavelli wrote specifically about this type of ruler. He called them the most dangerous and the most fragile simultaneously, because their power isn't generated from within, it's borrowed from the people around them. And borrowed power has to be constantly renewed. Here's the thing nobody talks about with Homelander. He genuinely believes he's the greatest being alive. And he also needs everyone around him to constantly confirm that's true. Both things at the same time. That's not a contradiction, that's the exact combination Machiavelli warned about. The most volatile and ultimately self-destructive form of power that exists. And here's the image that makes it click. A satellite has no gravity of its own. You can't be pulled toward something that's already orbiting you. And Homelander, for all his power, is always orbiting the crowd's approval. Always circling that validation. Always one withdrawal of applause away from catastrophic instability. Now here's the open loop I want you to hold on to. We're going to come back to this later specifically. The moment Machiavelli says a person like this becomes truly unreachable. The point of no return. Most people never see it in real life until the damage is already done. Stay with me. Drop unbreakable in the comments if this is already making you think of someone you know. Now here's the thing that should genuinely confuse you, because it seems like it should work the other way. Homelander generates fear. Real, visceral, paralyzing fear. Every room he walks into in The Boys goes quiet. Every person around him is operating with a constant background awareness that he could kill them in a second and nothing could stop him. That sounds like power, right? But watch what Machiavelli does with this. He wrote what is probably his most famous line: "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot have both." And everyone stops there. But the full argument is more precise, and Homelander violates the second half completely. The full rule is this: It is better to be feared than loved. If you can't have both, but you must never be hated. Fear without hatred produces obedience. Fear with hatred produces revolution, and Homelander, without ever understanding why, converts fear directly into hatred. Every single time. The laser at the rally, the head exploding on live television, the crowd scene. Each one felt to him like a demonstration of dominance, a reminder of his power, a way to make the fear visible and undeniable. But here's what was actually happening. Each act of public terror was converting people who were uncertain people, who might have stayed compliant, into committed opposition. He was spending from an account he didn't even know he had. And he never stopped to check the balance. So here's the cognitive dissonance you need to sit with. He's the most feared man alive. And that fear is the primary mechanism of his downfall. The thing that feels most like power is the thing draining it fastest. Machiavelli would have spotted this immediately. Because what Homelander generates isn't fear, it's terror. And terror always produces the same outcome. It consolidates short-term. It creates coalition long-term. Every public act of terror is an act of recruitment for the opposition they just haven't organized yet. He never learned the difference between compliance and loyalty. He controlled bodies. He never held minds. And you can only rule through terror until the moment the terror stops being enough, which is a moment that always arrives. Drop clarity in the comments right now if this just reframed something for you. Okay. Here's the part most people never get to, and it's the most important piece in this entire breakdown. Here's the forbidden knowledge Vogt never wanted examined too closely. Homelander's need for love wasn't an accident of his trauma. It was an engineering decision. The psychologists Vogt brought in had a specific brief: not to heal him, not to develop him, to manufacture a dependency so deep and so absolute that his reaction to any negative treatment, any withdrawal of approval, any criticism, any threat would be transformed into a compulsion to please rather than a drive to escape. Think about what that actually means. They took a child with completely normal human needs, the need to be loved, to be seen, to matter, and they cranked those needs up to a level no person should have to carry. Not to help him, to own him. The most powerful being on earth was made psychologically controllable through the deliberate cultivation of his wound. This is Machiavellian strategy at its most ruthless, and it was used against its own subject. Because Machiavelli understood something that Vogt understood and that most people never do. You don't control powerful people by threatening them. You control them by finding the thing they need more than anything else, and making yourself the only source of it. Homelander's deepest need was love, approval, the sense that he was real and worthy and seen. And Vogt installed and maintained that need as a management tool. The milk, the mother figures, the crowd's applause, the son he tried to mold into a reflection of himself. Every version of this need that surfaces across 5 seasons of The Boys points back to the same root: a child who was deliberately broken and then handed the power of a god to ensure the break would never fully heal. Because a healed Homelander couldn't be controlled. An unhealed Homelander with unlimited power? That's an asset. And here's what Machiavelli says about this. The man who finally understands how his need was manufactured is the man who can begin to dismantle it. Homelander never arrived at that understanding. He never had the space to. And so the need consumed everything. Every relationship, every decision, every act of violence, tracing back to the same hollow center. Drop awake in the comments if this hit differently than you expected. Remember the open loop from earlier? The moment Machiavelli says a man like Homelander becomes truly unreachable? Here it is. It's not when he commits his first act of violence. It's not when he loses control publicly. It's not even when he starts believing his own mythology. It's when the need can no longer be satisfied by any amount of power or devotion. And here's where it gets truly dark. There's a point, and it always comes, where nothing outside of you can fill what's missing inside. No crowd loud enough, no applause long enough, no devotion complete enough. Because what the person actually needs isn't love or approval or admiration. What they need is the self that was never allowed to form. And no external source can fill an internal absence. Ever. This is why Homelander couldn't be saved by Ryan, couldn't be saved by Stillwell, couldn't be saved by the country worshiping him or the god status he finally achieved. Because none of those things were the actual thing. The actual thing, a self that could exist independently of anyone's approval, was the one thing his entire architecture was designed to prevent him from developing. He was the most powerful man alive. He was also the emptiest. And that combination, absolute power, absolute emptiness, isn't a supervillain origin story. It's the most honest portrait of unchecked narcissistic psychology ever put on screen. And if you look carefully enough, you'll recognize pieces of it in people you already know. So here's where it stops being about Homelander. Look around you. Not for someone with laser eyes, for someone whose power and whose need operate in exactly this relationship. The person who built everything, the business, the reputation, the control, and still needs the room to confirm it's real. The person whose warmth is available when you perform devotion and withdrawn the moment you question them. The person who manufactures crises to remain the center. You've met this person. You may be navigating this person right now. And what Machiavelli gives you, what this psychology gives you, is the ability to see the mechanism before it catches you. Drop free in the comments if this just names something you've been living inside. Here's what Homelander's story actually teaches. And it's not about power. It's about foundation. There's a version of existence where your stability comes from within, where your sense of self doesn't require constant external confirmation to stay intact. Where you can walk into a room without needing the room to validate you. Where disapproval doesn't dissolve you. Where the withdrawal of applause doesn't trigger a crisis. Machiavelli called this sovereignty. The capacity to govern yourself before attempting to govern anything else. And he observed across decades of watching power operate at close range that the man who achieved this was almost always the man who held power longest, built most durably, and left something real behind. Homelander never had that. Not because he was uniquely broken, because he was deliberately prevented from developing it. The system that built him needed him hollow. A full man, a man with a stable, independent sense of self, is much harder to control. So here's the question this video leaves you with. Are you building on solid ground, or are you building on approval? On the way certain people react to you, on the validation of a crowd, a boss, a partner, an algorithm, on the performance of strength, rather than the foundation of it. Because approval is a shifting surface. It moves with other people's moods, their needs, their agendas. Build on it, and you build what Homelander built, something that looks invincible from the outside and is structurally hollow from the inside. And every day you choose your own standard over the crowd's verdict, you build something Homelander never had. Every time you hold your position without needing the room to validate it, you accumulate what Machiavelli called the only form of power that can't be taken by withdrawing applause. The kind that lives in you. Homelander couldn't build that self because he was never given the space to. You have that space. The question is what you're doing with it. Drop sovereign in the comments right now. not as a wish, as a declaration. And if this video shifted something that other videos haven't, subscribe. We go deeper every week. The work never stops, and neither do you.